Over on ITVX, arriving on Thursday the 28th of November, it's a new sci-fi series called Mrs. Davis, and here's a clip.
It is a machine.
She wants to talk.
Talk to you. If I say no, it's just going to send someone else, isn't it?
Probably. You are the only person on the planet who can fulfill this quest. You must locate the Holy Grail.
Yes, Ian. So you might have to help me out a little with this one because I got the screener quite late in the day and I tried to do two things at once. Apparently, women can do many more things than just one thing at once. Turns out, not me. Because this particular sci-fi adventure, there's a lot of toing and froing and you need to watch it, basically. So let's just go back to the beginning of this. It's 8 parts, and it is a sci-fi comedy adventure. So, I always, again, I find clashing genres a bit awkward at times. If I'm honest with you, I kind of want it to be one thing or the other, but this is not. And sci-fi, as you well know, listeners, is not my strength or something that I absolutely adore. But Betty Gilpin plays Sister Simone. She is this horse-riding vigilante nun, and she is absolutely furious when the Mother Superior announces that the convent is going to be sold. The nuns have to be relocated. She goes absolutely crazy. And actually, I was reading an interview from Betty Gilpin, who was saying that she doesn't actually have any faith or particular faith, and that taking on a part like this and understanding someone's passion was a really interesting thing to do. And I could kind of imagine that. I often wish I had more faith or had faith because I suppose lots of things are answerable in many ways. And so she was seeing it through the eyes of Sister Simone, who's absolutely incandescent with rage that this nunnery is going to be sold and they've all got to move. But she is completely convinced that this predicament, and this is where it all gets a bit bizarre, is the fault of this omnipresent artificial intelligence super being known as Mrs. Davis. Of course it is. That's exactly where my mind goes to when things don't go my way. So she sets off on a quest to destroy it. Mrs. Davis. And she's forced to team up with her ex-boyfriend. And so it's a kind of, you see this crazy scenarios going on. And at that point, I must admit, I stopped what I was doing and sat there and just kind of like really tried to understand. Because, Ian, I mean, I don't know, I'll probably hand over to you in a minute on this one, because it just felt to me incredibly complicated, despite actually this is just sort of one woman's plan to try and destroy the thing that's destroying the one thing she wants to keep, essentially. But it's incredibly convoluted. And I'm not going to lie, I found it quite tricky. What did you think?
You've got to have a little faith, Hannah, haven't you? Well, turn the quirkometer up to 11. This is from the Emmy-winning screenwriter Damon Lindelof, who was behind Lost. And it's the old story, isn't it, Hannah, of a horse-riding vigilante nun taking on an omnipotent artificial intelligence. Yeah. So Betty Gilpin, Sister Simone in this, she was in Glow, which I always rave about, don't I? It starts off, I think, in quite exciting fashion because we're back in the 14th century and the Knights Templar who kind of crop up in various things like, Indiana Jones and Dan Brown. Anyway, some of the Knights Templar are being burned at the stake, and then this convent is suddenly invaded by a load of soldiers, and the nuns start whipping out their swords and decapitating the soldiers. I thought, this is something I can get on board with. Anyway, but then we fast forward to the present day, and yes, Simone is in a nunnery, but she's got a sideline, she's got a side hustle, Hannah, because of course, when she's not in the convent, she likes to expose magicians who are up to no good. At this stage, I was like, hang on a minute. And I tried, stupidly, I tried to apply some logic to what was happening. So we see these magicians are conning this guy. So a woman, it's sort of a honey trap. A woman's picked him up and they're driving back to her place. Okay, but he's married, so he shouldn't really be doing it, you know. And then they make him think that she's driven into a sort of advertising billboard at the side of the highway and been decapitated. But it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all special effects. And the idea is that like he'll freak out and give them some money. But why didn't they just take him to the hotel room or wherever, take a photo of him with this woman and blackmail him that way? Anyway, that was number one. Number two, the nuns have all made some jam and they're going off to sell their jam. And Mrs. Davis, which is the name for the AI, and it's quite it's a bit Black Mirror-ish. It's like everyone's got these earbuds in, as they do these days, but they're all sort of listening to this thing, which is like Alexa, I guess, or, you know, Siri. So this AI arranges for someone with a giant magnifying glass on a car to heat up the jam and make it explode. It's super quirky. So I think I've kind of lost interest in it. It's gone too quirky for me. But there's a lot of interesting stuff to come. So if you can suspend your disbelief. So yeah, basically, yeah, as you say, Simone has to locate the Holy Grail, of course, and then the AI will self-destruct. Okay, so that's the setup. But there's some good stuff coming. So we're going to flash back to see her father, played by David Arquette, and her mother, Elizabeth Marvel. We're going to meet her ex, called Wiley, played by Jake McDormand. There's going to be something about a liver transplant. There's going to be a conspiracy in the form of a training shoe ad campaign. Yeah, just if you can imagine it, it's probably going to be in this. Anything weird, crazy. It really is. You won't have seen anything like it, to be fair. I mean, possibly, you know, perhaps a bit Lynchian, maybe. I don't know. It's just really, really, really off the scale. But she is great in it. I think the performances are good. It's just whether you can take the very kind of knowing quirkiness in that, you know, it's kind of setting out to completely, you know, wrong foot you. And it certainly succeeds in doing that. So, yeah, give it a go because, you know, it's outrageously different. But it wasn't quite for me.